Have you ever had a night when you couldn't quite explain why life suddenly felt empty? Maybe you sat by the window staring at the quiet street and wondered, what's left for me now? For some, it begins after retirement. For others, it follows the loss of a loved one or a change in health. Outwardly, everything seems fine. The family is grown, the responsibilities are fewer, the days are quieter. But inside, there's a strange silence, as if something deeper is shifting. This silence is not just loneliness, and it's not simply depression. Many spiritual teachers across history have called it the dark night of the soul. It is a time when the familiar sources of meaning no longer satisfy, when the prayers that once brought comfort feel empty, when the routines that once kept us steady suddenly seem hollow. But here's the surprising truth. This darkness is not a punishment. It is not life abandoning you. In fact, it may be one of the most sacred invitations your soul will ever receive. The Spanish mystic Saint John of the Cross, over 400 years ago, wrote about this very experience. He described a night so dark that the soul felt completely lost. Yet in that darkness, he discovered a doorway leading to a deeper union with God. Centuries later, the psychologist Jung spoke of something similar in modern terms. A time when the shadow rises, when the hidden parts of ourselves come forward, not to destroy us, but to make us whole. For many of us, especially in the second half of life, this dark night can arrive quietly. It doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's just a lingering question in the heart. Why doesn't life feel the same anymore? Or a whisper that says, there must be something more than this. I once heard a story about a man in his 70s. He had worked hard all his life, provided for his family, and was proud of what he had built. But when retirement came, he felt an aching emptiness each morning. At first, he thought something was wrong with him. Later, he realized nothing was wrong. He wasn't broken. He was simply being invited to discover a new way of living, not driven by roles or achievements, but rooted in the quiet truth of his soul. That is what the dark night of the soul really is. Not the end, but a passage. A sacred crossing where the old ways dissolve so that something more authentic can emerge. In this video, we will walk together through this mystery. We'll explore where the idea of the dark night came from, how to recognize when you're in it, the common mistakes people make, and most importantly, how to move through it. Not with fear, but with trust. So if you've ever wondered, what's happening to me? Why does life feel so empty now? Stay with me, because by the end, you may see that this emptiness is not a curse. It might just be the first step toward the most meaningful chapter of your life. You might be surprised to hear this, but the phrase dark night of the soul is not something modern writers invented. It goes back more than 400 years to a Spanish mystic named Saint John of the Cross. He wrote a famous poem describing a long, dark night when the soul felt abandoned, stripped of comfort, and left in silence. But he didn't see it as punishment. For him, this night was a holy passage, a necessary part of spiritual transformation, where the old ways of believing no longer worked, so that a deeper connection with God could be born. In the Christian mystical tradition, this dark night was never about despair for its own sake. It was about purification, like a fire burning away illusions, leaving behind only what is true. Centuries later, the psychologist Jung recognized something similar, but he used the language of psychology. He spoke about the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we try to bury. When we begin a journey of self-discovery, these forgotten emotions, fears, and wounds rise to the surface. Jung often said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." In that sense, the dark night isn't just spiritual, it's also deeply psychological. It's a time when what we've hidden from ourselves finally asks to be seen, not to break us, but to heal us. Now, here's something very important to understand. The dark night of the soul is not the same as clinical depression. Depression is a medical condition, one that deserves professional care and support. The dark night, on the other hand, is more of a spiritual crisis, a feeling that life has lost its meaning, that your old ways of faith or purpose no longer sustain you. It may feel similar on the surface, but the inner call is very different. And yet here's where many people stumble. They misdiagnose themselves. Some believe they're mentally ill when in truth their soul is in transformation. Others dismiss serious depression as merely a spiritual test and refuse help when they truly need it. Both mistakes can be harmful. I remember hearing the story of a man in his 70s. After retiring, he felt empty, restless, and disconnected from life. His family thought he was depressed. But as time went on, he began to realize that what he had lost wasn't just energy or motivation. It was his old sense of identity. Through journaling, meditation, and allowing painful memories from childhood to surface, he found a new kind of peace. He wasn't broken. He was being reborn. The lesson is this: being able to tell the difference matters. If your symptoms point to clinical depression, it's vital to seek medical help. But if your heart feels like it's being stripped bare, as if life itself is asking you to let go of old certainties, you may be in the dark night of the soul. And once you understand this, you can begin to see the experience not as a failure, but as an invitation, a threshold leading into the deepest kind of transformation. In the next part, we'll explore how to recognize the signs that you are walking through your own dark night, so that you can name it and no longer fear it. How do you know if you're truly in the dark night of the soul? It's an important question, because many people go through this stage without realizing what's happening. They think they're just getting older, losing energy, or sinking into depression. But the dark night carries its own unique signs, and once you can name them, the journey becomes a little less frightening. Number 1. Life suddenly feels empty, even when nothing is wrong. The things that once gave meaning, work, family, daily routines, no longer bring the same joy. A man in his mid-60s once told me, "I spent my life working hard, raising my kids, doing what was expected. Now everything's fine on the outside, but inside I wake up asking, what was it all for?" This isn't laziness or weakness. It's the soul searching for a deeper layer of purpose. Number 2, you feel disconnected from old sources of faith or comfort. Maybe you once found strength in church, in prayer, or in meditation. But now, those practices feel strangely empty. A woman in her 70s told me, "I still attend Mass every Sunday, but I no longer feel God's presence the way I used to. I thought He had abandoned me." But what's really happening is that the outer form is fading, so that a more direct, personal experience of the divine can begin. 3. Deep loneliness, even in the company of others. You may still be surrounded by family or friends, yet inside you feel unseen, as though no one truly understands what you're going through. The dark night can feel like standing between two worlds. The old world has lost its life, and the new one hasn't fully arrived yet. That in-between space is what creates the ache of loneliness. 4. Old wounds and memories resurface. Pain from childhood, regrets from the past, grief you thought was long gone. All of it may rise again. The dark night brings hidden shadows to the surface, not to torment you, but to finally be healed. 5. The feeling that a part of you is dying. This may be the hardest sign to describe. You may feel like your old identity, the role of parent, provider, achiever, or caretaker, is slipping away. It can feel terrifying, but this is not the death of your soul. It's the death of what no longer serves you, making room for a truer self to be born. The deeper truth, these signs are not meant to scare you. They're here to remind you that what you're experiencing is not random, and it's not the end. It's part of a sacred passage that countless souls before you have walked. And once you can name it, you no longer have to fight it. You can begin to walk through the dark night with a little more trust, knowing that this stage has meaning. In the next part, we'll ask an even deeper question. Why does the dark night come at all? And why does it often arrive at the very moment we least expect it? You may be asking yourself, why is this happening to me? I've lived a good life. I cared for my family. I did what was right. I kept my faith. So why would darkness still come? It's one of the most common questions and one of the most misunderstood. But the truth is simple. The dark night does not come to punish you. It comes to open a new chapter in your soul's journey. A spiritual passage. In the mystical traditions, teachers often say, when the soul is ready to grow, darkness arrives as a test. It's like a seed buried in the soil. From the outside, it looks like the seed has been lost to the dark, damp earth. But only in that hidden place can the seed split open and bring forth new life. If you dig it up too soon, it dies. But if you let it stay in the dark long enough, it breaks open and grows. We too must spend time in the soil of unknowing before a new life can emerge. Psychological language. Modern psychology says something similar. Carl Jung called it the collapse of the ego. When we are young, our ego, our roles, our achievements, our identities give us structure and help us survive. But in the second half of life, those old roles begin to feel too small. It's like a coat you once wore proudly, but now it no longer fits. The dark night is the moment when that coat tears apart, so you can step into something larger and freer. A real story. I remember the story of David, a 72-year-old engineer from California. His whole life was defined by work, schedules, and discipline. But after retirement, he felt useless. He told me, I thought I had lost everything. In truth, what he lost was not himself, but the role that had once defined him. During that dark time, he began to play piano again, something he had loved as a boy. Later, he started writing poetry. He discovered that what the darkness destroyed was not his soul, but the false identity he had built around his career. What remained was more authentic and freer than he had ever imagined. Why now? The dark night often comes during major transitions, after retirement, when children leave home, after the loss of a loved one, or when health begins to change. These moments create space where the old structures can no longer hold us. The soul seizes that space to invite us deeper. So here is the key lesson. The dark night does not come because you failed. It comes because you have gone as far as you can on the old path. It is a sign that you are ready for more. In the next part, we'll look at the common mistakes people make when facing this darkness. Mistakes that can make the night feel longer and heavier than it needs to be. When the dark night of the soul arrives, most of us feel confused and unprepared. No one taught us how to walk through this stage of life. And because of that, many people make mistakes that unintentionally make the darkness feel heavier and last longer. Mistake 1. Running away by staying busy. Some people fill their days with endless activity, TV, social media, shopping, travel, anything to avoid sitting with the silence inside. A woman in her 60s once admitted to me, I hated the quiet. Every time I was alone, I turned on the radio, called someone, or found something to do. But the more I ran, the more exhausted I became. The truth is, you can't outrun the darkness because it lives within you. Mistake 2. Forcing everything to be positive. In our culture, we're often told to think positive or just be grateful. Of course, gratitude is beautiful, but when used to deny pain, it becomes a mask. Smiling while your heart is breaking doesn't bring healing. Jung once said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Mistake 3. Searching for a quick fix. Many people go looking for instant solutions, a spiritual teacher who promises healing overnight, or a course that claims to erase all suffering. But the dark night is not something you can skip. No one can live it for you. It is a personal passage, and only by walking through it yourself will you find transformation. Mistake 4. Confusing spiritual crisis with mental illness. This is perhaps the most dangerous mistake. Some people experience a dark night but believe they are going crazy, rushing to medicate themselves without reflection. Others suffer from serious depression, but dismiss it as just a spiritual test, refusing to seek medical help. Both extremes can be harmful. The wisdom lies in discernment, listening deeply to your body and mind and getting professional support when needed. The lesson. So what can we learn from this? The dark night cannot be painted over or rushed away. It asks for honesty. The more you run, deny, or seek shortcuts, the longer the journey feels. But the moment you stop and face it, with patience, courage, and small steps, the darkness begins to shift. It transforms from an enemy into a teacher. In the next part, we'll discover the hidden secret, why the dark night is not an ending but a doorway, a sacred threshold leading you into new light. Most people hear the phrase dark night of the soul and feel afraid. It sounds like loss, emptiness, or even death from within. And yet, here's the secret very few people realize. The dark night is not a dead end. It is a doorway. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." In other words, it is often in the very moment when we feel stripped of faith, meaning, and certainty, that we are being invited into the deepest truth of who we are, the seed in the soil. Think of a seed. To the outside eye, when it's buried in the dark, wet soil, it looks like the end of the seed's life. But in that hidden place, the seed cracks open and begins to grow. If we dig it up too soon, it dies. But if it stays in the darkness long enough, it transforms into new life. Our souls are like that seed. What feels like an ending is often the very beginning of something more authentic. A real story. I once heard the story of Michael, a 68-year-old man from Texas. After retiring, he felt his life was meaningless. Each day looked the same. Wake up, eat breakfast, watch TV, go to bed. He said, "I felt like I was just waiting to die." But in the middle of that dark time, a friend encouraged him to pick up painting, something he had loved in his youth. At first, it was just to pass the hours, but over time, each brushstroke became a voice for his soul. Today, he runs a small art studio where he paints and teaches local children. He told me, "Without that darkness, I would never have found this part of myself again." This is the paradox of the dark night. It tears down what is false, so that the truest part of you can emerge. Seeing with new eyes. After passing through, many people describe the world differently. The sound of birds in the morning, the taste of a warm cup of tea, the quiet joy of walking in nature. These simple things suddenly feel sacred. Why? Because you no longer seek meaning outside of yourself. You begin to discover it in presence itself. The true gift. The dark night doesn't destroy you. It destroys the illusions about you. It strips away the masks, the roles, the borrowed beliefs, until only the essence remains, your soul, free, whole, and alive. So if you find yourself in the middle of that darkness right now, remember, what feels like loss may actually be an opening. What feels like the end may be a passage. The dark night is not the grave of your spirit, but the threshold of your rebirth. If the dark night of the soul is a doorway, the next question is, how do we walk through it with strength and peace? The truth is, the darkness doesn't vanish just because we want it to. It asks to be lived, felt, and slowly transformed. Here are some gentle practices that can help you navigate this sacred passage. Step 1. Acceptance. Stop fighting the darkness. One of the biggest mistakes is to resist or deny the experience. But the dark night is like a storm. You can't scream at the sky to make it end, but you can find shelter and wait it out with patience. My friend Linda, age 67, once said, "For months I kept asking, why me? But when I changed the question to, what is this darkness trying to teach me? Everything began to shift." Mini practice. Each time you feel empty or disconnected, write down this question. What might my soul be teaching me right now? Step 2. Observation. Befriend your emotions. In the dark night, buried feelings often rise to the surface. Fear, anger, regret. Don't push them away. Watch them, the way you'd watch clouds move across the sky. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." By observing without judgment, you begin to bring light into the shadows. Mini practice. When a strong emotion comes, instead of asking, "How can I make this stop?" try asking, "What is this feeling asking me to notice?" Step 3. Healthy solitude. Turning loneliness into a sanctuary. During this stage, you may feel drawn to step back from the world. That's okay. But remember, solitude is different from isolation. Solitude is being alone in a nourishing way, while isolation drains you. Richard, age 72, lost his wife and spent months grieving. Over time, he began sitting quietly each morning on his porch, watching the sunlight filter through the trees. At first it was painful, he said. But slowly, the silence became a companion instead of an enemy. Mini practice. Set aside just 15 minutes a day without phone, TV, or distractions. Sit, breathe, and simply notice your own presence. Step 4. Seek safe community. While solitude heals, we also need connection. A meditation group, a supportive friend, or even an online community can remind you that you're not walking alone. Neuroscience shows that when we share our struggles in a safe space, our brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone that calms fear and softens loneliness. Mini suggestion: if you don't have a group, try something simple. Leave a comment under this video saying, "I am walking through the dark night." Just that act can remind you, you are not alone. Step 5. Nurture creativity and service. One of the most powerful ways to move through darkness is to channel it into creation or contribution. Many people rediscover painting, writing, gardening, cooking, or volunteering during this time. Creativity is not about art alone. It is about letting your soul express itself. Eleanor, 75, went through a long season of grief. She began writing small poems in her journal. Later, she shared them with her grandchildren and friends at church. "I never knew my words could touch others," she said, "but the darkness gave me a voice." Mini practice. Choose one small activity you once loved. Write a few lines, plant a flower, or cook a simple meal with love. Don't aim for perfection. Let it be a way your soul breathes. The dark night is not asking you to be perfect, fearless, or unshakable. It only asks you to take one small, honest step at a time. And with each step, the darkness begins to transform into a teacher. In the next part, we'll discover what happens after you walk through the doorway, the beautiful transformations that await on the other side. When you finally walk through the dark night of the soul, something remarkable happens. You are no longer the same person. The change doesn't arrive with fireworks or fanfare. It unfolds quietly, almost invisibly from deep within. Here are some of the transformations that often blossom on the other side of the darkness. 1. A peace that no longer depends on circumstances. Before, your happiness may have relied on career, achievements, or the approval of others. But after the dark night, you begin to realize peace comes from within, from the ability to simply sit with yourself. A 74-year-old man once told me, "I used to need a big project to feel worthwhile. Now sipping tea by the window, listening to the wind in the trees, I feel whole." That is the first transformation. You are no longer pulled endlessly outward. You become centered in your own being. 2. A heart that opens wider to life. The dark night strips away old roles and masks. In their place, it leaves a softer, more compassionate heart. You become more forgiving not only of others, but of yourself. A woman in her 70s from New York told me, "After my husband passed, I went through the darkest season of my life. But now I cry more easily, not out of despair, but from gratitude. A child's laughter or a friend's hug can move me to tears. My heart feels alive again." The ice melts, and what remains is love without control, care without condition. 3. Creativity awakened. Many people discover a wellspring of creativity they never knew they had. The darkness becomes raw material for art, gardening, writing, or music. Creativity is not only about producing something beautiful, it's about letting the soul find its voice. John 69, once a banker, fell into emptiness after retirement. Out of curiosity, he tried pottery. To his surprise, shaping clay brought him joy and calm. He began gifting his handmade bowls to friends. "I never thought of myself as an artist," he said, but the dark night opened that door. 4. Relationships become more authentic. In the dark night, old unconscious contracts dissolve. Beliefs like, "I'm only lovable if I please others," or "I'm worthy only when people approve of me." Without these chains, relationships shift. Some superficial connections may fade, but what remains is deeper, truer. It's no longer about filling emptiness with another person. It's about meeting soul to soul without masks. Number 5, a rediscovery of meaning. Perhaps the greatest gift is a renewed sense of purpose. Many feel called to give back, mentoring younger generations, caring for nature, volunteering, or simply being a wise listener for others. Psychologists call this stage generativity, the desire to plant seeds for the future, and often it's strongest in the second half of life. The lesson: the dark night doesn't ruin you. It removes what no longer serves you, so your true essence can shine through. A freer heart, a creative spirit, and a soul at peace. You may not see all these changes at once, but trust this. Day by day, the darkness is secretly planting seeds, and in time they will bloom into a new season of your life. In the next part, we'll reflect on the final lessons of this journey, to see that the dark night, far from being a curse, is actually one of life's greatest hidden gifts. As we look back over this journey together, one truth becomes clear. The dark night of the soul is not a curse, but a gift in disguise. Yes, it can feel empty. Yes, it can feel lonely, as if the world has turned its back on you. But within that darkness lies a sacred invitation to let go of illusions, to remove the masks we've worn for too long, and to discover the truth of who we really are. Lesson: darkness and light are not separate. Many people believe life is only meaningful when it is full of light, joy, and success. But think of a flower. It needs both sunlight and darkness to grow. Its roots, buried deep in the unseen soil, are what make the blossom possible. In the same way, the tears you've cried, the sleepless nights, the unanswered questions, all of these form the rich soil where your soul takes root and matures. Saint John of the Cross once wrote in his mystical poem, "In the dark night, the soul finds its way to the light of union." His words remind us that darkness is not the opposite of light. It is the pathway to it. A new perspective on aging and life. So many people fear getting older, losing health, losing roles, losing importance. But if you have walked through a dark night, you know aging is not about loss. It is about deepening. It is about freedom. The man who once defined himself by his work finds joy in music. The woman who once thought her life was over after loss becomes the spiritual anchor for her family. Again and again, the dark night shows us, crisis is not the end. It is rebirth. A message for you. If you are in the middle of the darkness right now, I want you to remember, you are not alone. Millions of souls have walked this path before you, and millions more will after you. What you are experiencing is not proof that you are broken. It is proof that you are being called deeper. And here's something else. You are stronger than you think. The emptiness you feel is not the absence of life. It is the clearing of space so a more authentic life can begin. You are worthy of peace, you are worthy of light, and the dark night is simply the doorway to both. Closing an invitation. So I want to ask you, in your own dark night, what seed is being planted? Take a moment to reflect, and if you feel comfortable, share your answer in the comments. Your story might become the light someone else needs. And if this message has touched your heart, I invite you to subscribe and join our community, a space where wisdom, healing, and authenticity are always welcome. Before we close, I invite you to place your hand gently over your heart and whisper, I am not being swallowed by darkness. I am walking through the doorway into the light of my soul. And remember, the dawn always follows the longest night. You've walked with me through this journey. Understanding what the dark night of the soul truly is, the signs that mark it, the reasons it comes, the mistakes to avoid, and the transformations that await on the other side. Now I want to leave you with one clear message. You are not alone. If you are in the middle of this darkness, remember, countless souls across history have walked this very path, and most of them discovered that the darkness did not destroy them. It destroyed only the false layers so that their true self could shine through. You are stronger than you think. You may feel lost or disconnected, but the truth is your soul is not fading. It is calling you forward, urging you to step through the doorway you never dared to open before. You are worthy of peace and light. The dark night is not life abandoning you. It is life inviting you into a deeper, freer, more authentic way of being. So I want to ask you, do you see the darkness as an enemy or as a teacher? If you feel called, share your reflections in the comments, because sometimes just writing it down is the first step toward transformation, and your words may become the encouragement someone else needs tonight. And if this message has resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe and join this community, a circle where wisdom, healing, and authenticity are honored. Together, we can hold space for one another, so no soul ever has to walk this path alone. Before we end, take a breath, close your eyes for a moment and whisper gently to yourself, I am not being consumed by the dark. I am walking through the doorway into the light of my soul. And always remember, the dawn is waiting on the other side of the longest night.